Hi folks, Mr. Teslonian back here again. I'm going to take you from the ground up, step by step, how to take what you see in front of you basically. Other than that shiny pipe sitting there at the angle, well, I have 40 feet of that, not just a little section. I just didn't want to put that up there on the truck. We're going to take basically what you see here in front of you, and we're going to make this little truck right here, Chevy Love, run on synthetic gas from wood. We're also going to precipitate out all of our liquids, the crude oil, the biocrude, and our methanol producing products out of that smoke in the process, and hopefully run that around our exhaust in the end, converting that over to another usable fuel and putting it into our engine. So let me go through real quick what we're going to have done here with what you see in front of you. Like I said, the shiny pipe here at the angle, it's not just one little section. We need 40 feet of that actually for my truck here. That's going to help us create the radiator system, as well as these 3 nice chunks of 1-inch black iron pipe you see threaded on both sides. Those are all 7 foot long right there. So that's going to give us altogether what, 21, so 61 feet of piping between the 2-inch and the 1-inch for our radiator system. And I can't imagine that that's not going to get our smoke from the synthetic gas production reactor here down below the dew point. So I don't think we'll need much more than that. Anyways, so you got the one big tall tank here, as you can tell. That big tank is our material tube. And so we're going to just cut a top, a blow-by pressure relief top with a big spring in this. We're also going to cut the bottom of that tank, and we're going to attach this tank cut off right here, right to the bottom of it, because this tank's smaller than that one. What this will do is act as a reduction point, and that's actually where the pyrolysis is going to take place, is right there. Our pyrolysis process is going to actually take all that charcoal, and then at the bottom of this tank, instead of leaving it the same size, I'm actually going to go underneath a little bit and make that slightly reduce more. Probably about 1 inch of reduction from the actual diameter of what you see. And that'll actually help us even reduce that charcoal, compact it just a little more before it has to go through. The smoke actually has to force itself through more of that charcoal, which will help convert more of it into an appropriate syngas that we need, a cleaner syngas, hopefully with less tar production. So basically that's where we're starting here, and the whole unit, that tank welded onto the bottom of that one, once it's done, will sit inside of one of our barrels here. About halfway down the bottom of the reactor, which will be this tank, will sit down about halfway into this barrel. And what that's going to do for us is give us a dead air space that the heat can travel around, and that'll have this in the center of it, preheating our material inside of it. Preheating this and keeping this nice and warm, especially driving down the road, taking a lot of our thermal energy off as the wind passes by. So it'll be insulation in parts of this, and also air channels in parts of this, so that the smoke can get to the top and get back out through the rest of our system. Alright, and so you see the second barrel here. And the second barrel is going to be for our hay filter system at the very end of everything. Right before it goes out and into the carburetor, that's going to be completely packed full of straw. That'll help the final drying process after we've run it through all the condensers and radiators, which I'll also have, like you see over in the other project right here in the background, those condenser jugs like that. I'll have a few of those sitting at the bottom peaks of the radiator system running above this bed. Now the radiator system is actually going to be bolted down right to here, across the top of the bed line here, all the way down on both sides. It'll sit as high as the cab, slightly pitched in. It'll be a big 2-inch pipe radiator system running across on both sides. That'll help to make sure that a lot of our gas is well below the dew point and precipitate its moisture out of it. That's plenty of radiator. And if not, what I've done here with the black pipe is I'm going to cut that up and make my new tailgate, a radiator tailgate out of it if that's necessary. So let me get this started by cutting this tank, and once I get this tank cut, I'll show you about taking the measurements for this tank here, welding the two together, and getting our reactor and our material tube put together here, and then into our barrel. Alright folks, just going to take you through real quick where we are on the tank project. This is gasifier conversion. So here, let me show you something real quick on cutting your propane tanks. First of all, if you smell gas in them, or even if you don't smell gas in a propane tank, you should fill that tank all the way to the top full of water. And make sure while you're cutting it that you're cutting in a water line the entire time. Do not allow a large amount of open air space in them. But if you notice here, this is the weld line from the top of the tank there. This is the weld line. I went right below it and cut around, and I still had one more chunk of strengthening steel they put right behind the weld line to cut through. So if you go about a ½ inch below the edge of the weld line and make your cut, you won't have to cut through 2 pieces of steel like I did here, hopefully saving you quite a bit of your bits and some of your time. So what we've done now is, since we've got the top of that cut off, we've centered it and set it on our larger tank here. That's going to be our volume tank for our mass and our wood there, the larger gray one. This one's our reduction zone, our first of the reduction zones here. So we're now going to mark that out and cut out the gray tank so it's the same size going into this. Weld these two together, and we're going to take up here, take a 3-inch hole saw. I'm going to make a 3-way mark here and try to leave about a ½ inch gap all the way around, small amount of material in the center, and take 3 holes out with a 2-inch hole saw and leave a kind of a pre-screen area here with 2-inch holes in it. That'll help to make sure that the material's not dropping into my screen below, the ash screen, too quickly. So let me go ahead and get that done, and I'll show you from there. Alright, like I said, I flipped the reactor now over. I've taken that top piece back off. Just want to really quickly go over something here with you on the design. If you notice right at the tip of my finger right here, there's this black line carved in here. Right there, going all the way around. That's the actual true dimensions of our reduction zone here. So what I'm actually going to have is a slight reduction from the tank, even from what the actual size of the reduction zone is. And what that'll allow me is a small air gap right here and a downspout area that's going to allow for where our air inputs are going to be right here to constantly keep clean. The majority of the time, if we have a little bit of an overlap here, there's a little chance that something's going to come in and go back upwards and stay there anyways. It may get in there originally, but it won't stay there. So it's going to make sure our airflow is a lot more reliable with a small amount of overlap. So let me go ahead and keep going. Alright folks, just a moment ago I showed you how we had cut the top off of this 7-gallon tank and removed a large section, a circular section out of this larger tank. And what I've done here is I ground the metals to make sure there's going to be a clean weld on both tanks, and I've tack welded now across this thing around all over the place. That's going to give us our first preliminary weld to it. The other thing that I've done here, you're going to notice this ring, whoever welded this on, I would have loved to have had that welded on there square originally, but it's not. So I'm going to end up having to cut it off. I had to put my hole to true square here. So you can see a 4-inch output hole here in our reduction area. We're going to go ahead now and implement some of our pipes in here. Drill holes and put our airflow pipes into the reactor here. We're going to have 2 sets. One's going to come in right here, right above that final burn hole. And one's going to come in right here to allow for air to flow through a large chamber of charcoal. I have a feeling that the bigger the chamber of charcoal I can put the smoke through, the cleaner that gas is going to get before it gets out and into my radiator system and finally into the engine. So I wanted to show you real quick where I was, just not far from where I showed you before. The only difference is I have tack weld and ground, and I put the 4-inch hole here in the top. As you can see now, I can tilt the whole thing as one. It is one giant reactor. So I'm going to flip it over and show you what it looks like from the inside. Alright, so now I've flipped it over the way it's supposed to go. You're going to notice the relative height to this system. I wanted a long distance traveling unit. I didn't want a short distance unit, so this should be able to give me quite a ways before I have to refill this reactor. This is going to stick up in that truck a little ways out above that cab, obviously. So let me go ahead and just show you what we've got going on here for a lid to fill with our material. And as you can see, what it is actually the disc cut out of the other side. I made sure that it was larger than the hole we cut out of this side, which you can see there. So that's where we're going to fill our material into the reactor. It's going to go all the way down and finally burn down in the very bottom down there. I don't know how clear this is going to show up, but you should be able to see down in there a bit. See our final hole all the way at the bottom? Alright, so that's what it looks like inside. I can put the lid back on. And I'm going to make now a mount for that lid so it's able to seal really tight. You'll notice there's no air gap. That makes just a perfect seal right there. I'm just going to make it now so that it can actually blow by if there was a pop back inside of our gasifier reactor. This will actually have a spring to allow it to pop up Probably about that high if it needs to be. So that's some of the next steps here, and I'll go ahead and show you that when I get it done. Alright folks, go ahead and just show you a step more into the project here. As you can see, these welds have been fully completed all the way around, making sure that that's nice and sealed. There's no air leaks between the two of them. I've done a little bit of a test to make sure. And what you see here is a handle from the top of a propane tank. Looks just like this. I flattened out the loop over though. These were folded up on themselves. This one has actually an air gap around it. I don't like them to cover this. That one I could pound all the way closed. It left me two perfectly open sides right here, and matching on this one, as you can tell looking through there. We're going to line those up. Let me walk you around and show you. We've cut a much bigger hole in here, and to get that hole diameter, what I did is cut off the bottom ring that was already attached to the propane tank, because whoever had originally welded it on there had set it off center so much that I couldn't use it. So I've cut it off, and that's about the same size as the hole right here, so we're reducing one more time. So 3 stages of reduction here, and then I'll show you when we get this all done what's the next step, but let me go walk you around here. So I've now completed my weld on this side, walked it around, and now I'm going to go ahead and form the other handle here and put it on right here. Let me go ahead and do that real quick, and I'll attach another plate around this, which I'll show you when we get to it. And I'll also attach the other side of the bell up on top right here. Let me go ahead and grab that for a second, show you what that's going to look like, if it'll stay up there correctly. Okay, let me back off of that a bit. So there you go. That's what that's going to look like towards the very end. That's the end of the system right there. It's going to rebell outwards like that. We're going to use the top end of that propane tank for that bell out. It's going to go through the reduction zone here. That's where the smaller zone is. And then back into the bell and then to the screen. And that's going to make sure that we get as much of the paralysis as we can. And actually most of the burn action is going to be taking place up around our top line. And that's going to actually force the smoke to have to go through a compact layer of charcoal, which will help burn out a lot of the impurities that are going to clog up our engines, and then also help convert a lot more of that to either hydrogen or carbon monoxide. So let me keep going here, and I'll show you when I get a little bit further on. Alright, real quickly here, I wanted to update you on the progress that I'm making. As you can tell here, if I walk around, that whole circular section there, made out of those 2 upper handles of the propane tanks, is fully welded on there, ready to go. You can see the upper bowl put on there now. Let me show you what we've done inside of there. So there you go, there's a hole cut inside of that bowl, and this hole right now is about 1 inch of reduction between it, if you notice across my finger, between it and the edge of the inside. So it's going to reduce one more time before entering into this bowl. So if I take that off of there, you can see what we've got here. That's where I'm at right now. I'm going to do some work about right around the center right here right now, attaching pieces, strengthening this up. This is going to get really hot right here. So I'm going to add some extra steel here real quickly before I put that bowl on top. I'll show you once we've had that extra steel and the bowl welded on, I'll show you what we're doing next. Alright folks, real quickly I want to take you through some of the progress we've made. We've finally sealed up and welded on our reverse bowl here, which will become the ash reduction bowl setup. We've put an extra piece of steel, 1/4 inch all the way around our reactor zone here, our reduction zone. And that's going to allow, because this gets so hot right here, that if, you know, there was a possibility that that steel that I had in there could have melted down if there was ever an issue with this. This will give us a little more reinforcement for this zone. I can increase the temperature slightly in there and get a better reaction taking place. So you can see now, if I back up here, you can see that this is all ready to go. The next step here is to go ahead and attach our screen up here. Let me go ahead and fold this over so you can see what's inside of there. You notice I got one little offset hole from the propane tank lid right here where my fingertip is. I'm going to have to cover that with a piece of steel. I don't think I want to leave an air gap like that. That'll be an off pressure area right there. You'll notice in here that this actually reduces again. You'll see how far underneath my fingers are sticking. That's another reduction point. This hole right here is actually smaller than the inside diameter of our other reduction point, so it's even a finalized reduction point before it goes into the ash container. This should guarantee a pretty good burn, a clean gas out of the end of it. Right now I'm going to go ahead and start marking my hole zones across about right here somewhere. I'm going to take some measurements, try to make sure I put it about the right distance from right here. And we're going to go ahead and throw our air inlets right here, all the way around. And I'll show you that when I got that hooked up and how we did it. Alright, a quick update of where we are in this thermal reactor unit. Real quickly, you can see the grate screen that I'm going to cut down and make it so that it'll fit right up on top of our reduction bowl. That'll be the final stage of the burn. The material will have to fall through the screen into our ash catch down below. Real quickly here, you can see these holes that I've drilled in there. I put 4 holes so far. And you can see these pieces of pipe already on 2 sides that I've cut and measured. They're threaded in at the moment. In fact, what I'll probably end up doing here is unthreading them now that I got my measurements the way I wanted it, and welding it the other way around so I can always get to these, unthread the pieces. It makes it more manageable if you ever have to take it apart or clean it. So that'll actually be sticking out of there, and for now what we have is 4 1/2-inch holes, or well, 3/4 inch holes with 1/2-inch piping in them. I'm probably going to go through and put 1 more in between each one of them, and then I'm going to stick those out like I showed you, threads out, and put caps on those. I'm going to try to run it with a 4. It should be the right volume for this size of a vehicle, and later on, if I ever put this to a larger engine, generator or a bigger truck, something like that, I can always open up these and attach right to it, and I don't have to get in there and drill at that angle again. For now though, I believe if my mass airflow ratio is right, this should create a perfect jet speed. It's just enough restriction on the flow to create a high pressure flow inside, which will give us the temperature we're needing, and if we need any others, we'll already have it ready to go, and we can always adapt immediately to that. I showed you in the last video that we had reinforced this. All I'm going to do really quickly here is just chop down the screen now. The purpose of this final bell is hopefully by the time it gets into this, most of the material has become ash, or is reducing down finally to an ash point. And that gas we've produced, which is actually being produced from here upwards, this paralysis will be taking place here, producing gas that'll be forced due to pressure inside a sealed tank, will be forced up this. I'm going to try to turn so the wind's not affecting the camera here. Will be forced up through the system. It'll be reduced through a heavy concentration of finer grade charcoal, and then back through ash and out the screen and into our system. Well, I'll show you from there. That'll help refine this gas we're producing, clean it up, and hopefully produce a lot less tars in our design. So give me a moment, chop that screen up. I'm going to build a couple of the elbows here, attach the pipes, and I'm going to show you what it looks like from there before we set this down inside of our barrel. Alright, well, I just wanted you to meet one of my co-inventors here. He's helping me make the gasifier. And just thought I'd give him a peanut here. He enjoys those, obviously. Come here, little man. There you go. Yeah. Alright, so let's go back to how far we've gotten with the gasifier real quick. Alright, we're going to have some wind in the background here, but I'm going to really quickly take you through what we've done. You see these 2 longer pieces here that are welded on. You can see right here, you can see a flange, you can see the rods are welded. What those do is stop that screen from ever opening any further than this. You see we've got the screen fully sized to the right size. I just built a couple hooked hinges over here on the back, welded them on, as you can see. Just holds the screen in place. What these do is make sure that if we ever do have to use the shakers to make sure if there's anything that builds up on the screen, that it never can open up too far or fall out of place, and that way you try to close it and it's always going to close right. Because basically most of the time it's going to be pulled nice and closed like this with just a little bit of play, so that little bit of bumps going down the road can agitate it just slightly and keep it clean. You don't want it perfectly rigid. You also want to be able to, just in case something's gotten in there, say a rock or something's gotten in there that won't burn or anything like that, you can actually dump that into the bottom and get rid of it. Alright, so now we're going to go down and show you. I left 1 hole open here to show you what it was. You can see it right there. Now the other 3 of these pipes are now hooked up, so I'm going to back up and show you how far those go down. There's a little bit of wind here. I'm going to try to make this quick. Block some of it off. You can see that other pipe here going down. Those are 4 air inlets that you can see here. Well, 3 put on, 1 to still go. We've got our top grate ready to go. Once this is mounted inside the barrel, we'll have the little cable that goes down to this, and that way we can actuate this from outside of the entire system without ever going in there. I'll show you that when we get there. I just thought real quickly here I'd show you what it looks like as it starts to come together this far. And I just want you to remember, you can build these things with very minimal tools. I build most everything you see here with cordless tools, mounted off a 12-volt battery sometimes, especially if I'm off site like this and want to use the truck. So you can go ahead and use any of that. I'm running the generator from a gasifier to weld all this together. So basically using wood, alternative energy to make a system to create more alternative energy. Alright, now that we've gone through and shown you basically the finished reactor, just the cable, like I said, to go to this later on, I'm going to remove that screen. I'm going to go ahead and pull off all the metal here, the pipes and everything, now that I know where they go. And I'm going to start mounting this entire reactor now. Let me back up to show you. That system now is going to mount inside of that barrel. So I'm going to cut a hole in the lid of the barrel, which I'm going to do while it's all clamped down, and weld while it's clamped down. Start out with tack weld so you don't warp that steel. That's going to be the main key here, is not warping the metal on the lid of that barrel. So we're going to go ahead and start cutting barrel here and apply that reactor inside of the barrel. It's not going to sit all that far down into the barrel. As you can see here, it's probably only going to come up to about right here somewhere. And that's going to be the lid of the barrel, and the rest from here all the way up will be actually inside the barrel. Everything else will be either outside or inside a secondary barrel. And we'll go ahead and try to find another barrel here to cover that for more insulated value here. So give me just a moment to start cutting that barrel, and we'll do another shot once I've figured that out. Alright, let me stand back just for a moment here just to give you a shot of the whole thing there. I've got the hole, like I said, cut in the top of the barrel. I've set the reactor system down in there now. That's about exactly where it's going to sit. The only difference between what you see now and the finished design is going to be air intake spots here where those pipes are coming up out of here. There'll be 8 pipes coming out at the top of this, and also a gas output. And the gas output will probably be right out of the side right here. Maybe I'll take advantage of what this is, but I think I'll actually take it right here out of the side, which I'll show you when I'm done. First of all, when you do any of your cutting or your welding on your lid, and I'll tell you why I did the lid here in a minute, but when you do that, make sure it's cranked down dead tight. You want to make sure this thing, and take a hammer, when you think that's tight, just come around and tap it with a hammer lightly around that ridge, and it'll keep tightening with your bolt. Seal that thing real tight, do some tack welds, short runs, don't get it too hot when you weld it, and you'll keep this without warping it. It'll look good, it'll seal good, and that's a big key. I mean, creosote and other things are going to fill up inside of there and seal that up anyways in time pretty quickly. What this allows me, instead of going into the bottom of the barrel, this allows me easy access to my reactor head. You know, so if I need to make any adaptations, add, take away, anything like that, all I have to do is pull now the rim off here, pull the whole reactor out, and I've just got a little collar sticking off instead of a whole barrel sticking over the thing and having to reach in there and try to drill the barrel around it and all the rest of it. Just wasn't going to work. So I ended up doing it through the lid. I think that allows me a lot of maneuverability, so if any changes need to be made to make the system even better, we have easy access for that. So let me weld that together, and then we're going to go up here. It's one of the last stages here, and we're going to go ahead and weld the lid on this. And I think I've already showed you that, but give me just a second here and I'll put the lid up there. Alright, real quickly here is an update. Take you through what we've gotten done. Now we've got our hole cut in the top of the barrel, and then we've now set our whole reactor system all the way down in there, and I left, just so you can see, it's just about right there. The bottom of all that is right there. That's going to give us not a lot of distance between the bottom, still a foot and something, you know, in the bottom for ash catch, but that's going to give us just enough room so the heat has to travel all the way back up to the top of the barrel, help keep that reactor nice and hot in there. A lot of this will actually be insulated around certain key areas, and I'll show you that as we get there. Right now, our next step is, now that we've gotten this welded inside of there, one of the key things about welding this is do little sections. Never go around and just try to weld this whole thing around on such thin steel to thick steel. You end up warping this really, really bad. So just take a little section, move all the way over to the other side, do another little section, do a 4-post and then go in between opposites and just work yourself around slowly, doing little sections at a time in each spot, and you won't overheat and warp this metal. You'll try to keep the form of this lid as best as you can, because that's going to be our seal. Once it's fully cooled, don't remove this band either until this is fully cooled down. Once it's cooled, I'm going to remove this band, and we can flip this thing now over. We're going to put our air intake pipes into the bottom of the reactor once again and out of the top of the barrel here. So it's going to be easy for us to get the markings we need to put our holes through there. Let me go ahead and take that out of there now, flip it around, and I'll show you how to mount those pipes. Alright folks, we're finally getting done here with the final steps of our reactor's construction. As you can tell here, I've got all the air inlet pipes into the reactor zone. They're welded in, the elbows are in place. I even have them welded through the top of the barrel. I've mounted all that. Pretty simple to measure out, kind of mark. There is a little bit of fundamental law of why there's a distance between this and this, and in the end probably going to have another set of pipes right about here offset from these other ones, slightly higher, coming in also. And those will be for large draw regulation, and this is our small draw regulation for the system. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and flip that around, throw that inside of our 55-gallon barrel, which is right here. I'm going to cut a hole in the side of the barrel, the hole saw, which is going to be a 2-inch hole, and then I'm going to go ahead and drill. Alright, so the very next step for this, now that I've got that done, is to go ahead and stick this down inside this barrel. We're going to cut a hole in the side with our hole saw, a 2-inch hole. I'm going to go ahead and weld a coupler on there so we can draw our gas out. I'm going to attach a low volume electric 12-volt fan up to that, and we're going to go ahead and fire up our reactor. Give it a go and see how well it's going to work. So give me just a little while to throw that together, and I'll show you how it's doing when we get it fired up. Alright folks, one final thing here before I put it inside of the barrel. You can see the cable going up right here. That cable goes to our grate screen, and that'll actually be our gravity actuated grate screen cable right here. Goes through a very fine hole in the lid to make sure there's almost zero air leak. And right now I just have some weight hanging on it. I got to put a hook on the tank, which we'll do once this is inside of the barrel. But I wanted to show you just how that worked real quick. That was that final step inside of the reactor. And that'll allow us to dump anything. Like I said, those little prongs stop that grate from ever going any further. Give it guidance so it always comes right back up. So there we go. Our reactor is finally done. Other than the other side, all the way at the bottom down there, I have to put the lid on. But I wasn't going to do that until the very end, obviously, because it wouldn't sit level like it does now. It would have made it very difficult to manufacture the rest of this. So let me go ahead and throw this in the barrel now. We'll manufacture and set up the closing door on the other side, and I'll show you that. Install the pipe, like I said before, out of the side of the barrel, hook up our fan, and we'll be ready to rock and roll. This system's just about ready to go. So give me just a moment. I'll have that set up for you. Alright folks, our system is just about done. We've installed it inside of the barrel, as you can tell if I back up here and let you see that. It's even got the hinged lid now on top. It's fully installed and ready to go. The last thing left, after I show you what I've gotten done, is to put our output pipe in the barrel. Everything else is ready. Maybe a spring up at the top. I've still got to find one. So let's go ahead and walk you around real quick and show what we've got here. That cable that goes down to the lower grate, here's what I've got. I've got a lock washer here, or a lock nut with a washer on it, and some bolts welded here. So you can pull the cable off, it goes through that small hole, and you can raise and lower and shake that grate if you ever need to. It's real easy to operate. It catches itself on those lower prongs. You'll notice there's 2 bolts. One's for really nice and tight. That's going to keep it right to the rigid point. And if I want a little bit of a bounce to it, I can add it down to here, and that'll give just a little bit of play going down a road to allow for it to shake some of that off of there on its own. But there's our rigid mount. We'll just put the washer on there and this lock nut, and there you go. That's done and ready to go. And we'll tighten that all the way down in the end, so that way it can't ever slip off. And that's to shake the bottom. Let me go ahead and take you up on top here, show you what we've got done. Alright, so here's our hinge top. I've got a bad shadow here, so let me turn. It's fully hinged. We can rock it all the way back now. It's going to keep itself open. The only thing I'm going to do now is add a spring to this on the other side of that. So there's our lid ready to go. Sealed nice and tight right down on top. I got to put a pressure system up here and then also our CO2 input from the exhaust into this upper hole here. That's the last piece to get done there, but for now I'm going to plug it. You can tell the seal's dang good right here, and the weight of it's really heavy, so it's going to keep itself sealed. Other than a light spring just to help that for any bouncing down the road, this is ready to go. So we're basically a sealed chamber now. We've got our ash dump, we've got our air intake pipes, we've got everything ready to go except for our output pipe, and that's our next step. So let me go ahead and get going on that, and then we'll get a fan hooked up to the output pipe, turn this thing on, and see how well it's going to work. Alright folks, Mr. Thessalonian back here again on the final episode of how to construct the reactor part of our truck conversion here. You'll notice I've got smoke rolling out of that fan there. I've loaded it with wood and let it run for about the last, let's say 7 minutes or so. And I'm kind of standing on the wrong side at the moment. Let me go ahead and kind of turn myself to the other side. We're going to light this smoke here coming out of our fan and see if we've got synthetic gas. If everything works for us here. I've got some wind issues and a poor lighter, but there we go. Whoa. It's a heck of a flame once everything works correctly. You can tell that the wind right now is coming right into the end of this thing. Let's see if we can get it to run from this side. There we go. We had it lit for a second there. It needs to cool this smoke a lot more. There we go. Notice the smoke disappeared. We've got a nice clean burn off, and then it came back. But if I can keep the lighter lit inside of it, we've got synthetic gas flare off there. There we go, right there. You can see the smoke, how it disappears. Becomes very, very thin. That's a very large flame, almost impossible to see during the daytime. So I'll do one more test of this at night to show you exactly what's taking place. You'll notice the thickness of that cloud when I'm not lighting it here. And then once again, we'll come up to it and light it, and you'll notice it's not there. It's actually a flame rolling out of there when I do that. So right now, the flame's actually burning and staying burnt. That's synthetic gas production at a good enough rate there. It went out. So you can tell the difference there when the flame actually goes out between when it's not there. There's its lit again. Alright, so our synthetic gas is producing really well. Obviously there it's lit, obviously again, that's a big flame. I'd like to put it out so close to the fan. So we're going to choke it off, run a pipe inside of there real quick, and see if we can't do that at the end of the pipe. So here we go once again. There we go. We've got great synthetic gas light. There it is. That's our synthetic gas in ignition from our reactor system we just built to put into our truck. Well, I hope you enjoyed our little test here of the reactor in action. I put a minor amount of wood in there just because I wanted to make sure I didn't have thermal meltdown. What we're going to do now is let that go ahead and run its course. In the next part of this project, we'll put the radiator, the filters, and everything on the bed of this little love, and we'll get this whole reactor set up in there. This is going to look a little big for this truck, but I like to go big because there's a lot of other things I want to use this for than just this truck. So I hope you enjoyed. Until next time, this is Mr. Thessalonian and the Thessalonian Man Show. Hi folks, Mr. Thessalonian here. Yesterday I showed you just a quick film of this system just being tested real quick. We just threw a little bit of wood in there. I just wanted to see how it was going to work before filling it up a little bit further. Let me go through some of the things that have happened on the last part of the build. You saw me put the top on. The last thing I had left was to extend this pipe, or to weld a coupler on the barrel so I could put a 2-inch pipe off of this. The next part I've got here is a heater exchange fan. This heater exchange fan comes from an RV propane powered heater that was inside of there. It's a dual fan, and it's got an external motor, which is definitely going to be better to use. Typically you wouldn't use it this close to the reactor because I'm going to get drippage out of here from the bio crude oil basically that it's creating. So you'd want to put this after most of your filter system to start that process, but just to show you how to do this, I'm going to use it right here. We've got our air intake. I've got a couple buckets full of wood sitting right there, so we're going to go ahead and open this up. I'm going to take the camera, show you inside. I'm going to fill it up. I'm going to light it up, turn on the fan, and I'm going to show you how this thing works from the inside there, how to set it up, how to start it. This should be a pretty good demonstration of the whole system in action before we integrate this into some filters, into the radiator and onto the truck. So give me just a moment, I'll grab the camera and show you how we're going to load this and how to start it up. Alright, real quickly here, just want to show you the fan and the 2-inch pipe that was welded out of the barrel here. What we really did was just weld a coupler. That way we can go to any other fitting here. We can increase our diameter right outside of the barrel or decrease if we had to. So here's the fan. Like I said, it's just a dual bladed system, side by side, pulling it in and pushing it out here. External motor is always going to be the best way to do this, obviously. So just wanted to show you that real quick. That gives us some range of mobility in our pipe size, and we can change that over. Once again, we're just going to walk around here. Let me get up on top and put some of this wood inside of there, and I'll show you how to light it up. Alright, here we are on top of the reactor now. So here's the first steps. We've got a couple buckets full of material. I've got a box behind me with some starter stuff in it, some finer material, and some paper. And I'll show you that in a minute. Let's go ahead and look down inside of the reactor here. Let the camera focus in. Alright, you can see some of the ash floating around from our yesterday trial. Alright, so here we are looking down all the way into the bottom of our reactor from the top now. I'm going to zoom out again. Just let you see what that looked like down in there. We're looking all the way from the top here. We've opened up the lid. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do to start this system out. It's going to be a little difficult here. I'm going to have to hold the camera slightly off to the side, and I'm going to drop some wood in there. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to fill that bottom grate screen area up with a few bigger pieces of wood. Stuff that are actually going to hit all the way down to the bottom, like that one. That was a little guy. But we're actually going to try to fill some bigger chunks right on the bottom of that screen, so once they get lit by the finer material up above, that one rested right there, so knock that out of the way. Once they get lit, they'll actually keep the whole system burning really hot right from the beginning. Alright, well, they're kind of bunching up there, that won't matter too much. Alright, there we go. So what we're filming right now, it'll be a little difficult to tell. Let me try to zoom in for you. Is we're still inside of that elongated and narrowed spot, the actual condensing area there that I showed you on the build. We haven't even filled up past the point of that yet, and that's what we're going to do. We throw some bigger stuff down at the bottom now, and we're going to take some smaller stuff and start building up on top of that. This is just mixed sized wood that I cut up. Most of this was easier to cut with a machete than it would have been with a chainsaw. And right now, what we've done right there is basically some of those top pieces, you can see them resting now up on that upper ridge, are now up to the area where their airflow starts to build. And that's just about right. So what we've done now is filled the screen area with some large pieces, and we've now got, we got some ash problems. We've now got some smaller stuff right on top of that, filling up the reduction zone. And now we're going to take some really fine fire-starting wood and some bark, and throw that down on top of that, and then some paper to light it all. So give me a moment to grab some of the fire starter, and I'll set that in there, show you what that looks like. Alright, here's the final layer that I put inside as a starting layer. It's more of a fine mix. It's got some bark mixed in there, some fine sticks. This lights really, really easily. So let's take a couple handfuls of that. We'll stick that down once again. Let's let the camera zoom in a little bit there. Alright, so we're going to fill that in on top where we just filled up the larger material. Let's go ahead and drop a couple of big handfuls of that down in there. Let's see. Got some stuff in the way. Still needs a little bit more, so let's give it a little bit more. Alright, so there's our final load. You can see how full that is. Now I'm going to drop in a bag full of paper. Alright, I got down real quick here and turned on our fan. Maybe you can hear it running down there. That's going to be your first step. We've got our first load of all our small wood inside of there. I'm going to light this piece of paper trash on fire. I've got some paper trash inside of it. We're going to drop that down the hole. And we're going to drop some of this finer wood right on top of it. Of course, that's if the lighter wants to light for me here. There we go. Alright, so we've got that lit. Let's give that just a second, try to get some material going. There it is down inside of there. May not have lit quite right. We might have to do this a few times. So you might see a couple edits. But if not, we'll get it right the first time here and Just keep going, just letting you know if you do see an edit from here, that's why. So I'm dropping in just a little bit of that finer wood here, and that's going to help me get some of it going right in the beginning. Alright, it's going to be difficult. I'm going to have to stand pretty tall up here to keep that smoke from damaging my camera and the heat that's being generated. So we're going to watch that for a moment down in there. You can see how well it's already burning. Okay, we're going to let that paper trash and those pieces of wood actually fully catch here before shutting our lid down. I don't know how well that's going to show up for you, but you can see the smoke's already starting to generate pretty thick here. Alright, I can tell right now by the sound that we're getting pretty good ignition through the system. You can probably see in there and see flames rolling around a little bit. It's difficult to get the shot just right through the smoke and the glare and the sun and everything else. But you'll notice the smoke being generated right now out of the top is pretty good. Well, I'm going to go ahead and dump just a couple more handfuls of this stuff on there. I hear the paper being drawn down. Alright. Alright, our reactor now is fully started up from initial start process. That's the paper trash finally catching most of the wood we dropped in there. You can see the smoke output from our fan is already pretty good. Once you're really certain that the wood and the paper that you've put in there is fully on fire, what we're going to do is take a few of these buckets of wood right here, already ready to go, and we're going to dump that in on top of that once this is fully started. Make sure you don't put that in there until you're absolutely sure that what you started out with has already begun to coal. Otherwise, you'll just put it out and stop the whole reaction and you have to start all over again. And that can be really difficult since you don't want to start this from all the way up at the top somewhere. You want to make sure that reaction and the fire is all down there inside of that tank, down inside of your barrel. You also notice there our smoke content's getting thicker and thicker as this keeps going. Alright, so let's go ahead and shut the lid for a moment and let that work with the lid shut until it's fully gotten our lower reduction zone nice and cindered up. There's a lot of coals and red hot going on inside of there. Then we're going to dump these buckets in there. And you'll be able to tell that fan's really going to start pumping out the smoke here. Always remember when reopening your reactor top here, do not do it with your body above it. I'm going to go ahead and step down and away from this and get lower than it is, because the flame that I've seen at night come out of the top of this is a good 10 feet high, and you really don't want to be in its path. So always open it from down below down here, which this side I might have some kind of pole top piece right here so you can get to that easily from down here. Open and shut the system and not expose yourself to a possible puff that these things can do. So give it a moment, let it puff, go up there. Never put your body over the top once you've got any real reaction taking place. Don't learn that lesson the hard way. Keep everything out from above these things once you've got them going. So once again, that was just the safety part of it. You'll notice our smoke production's doing pretty well. That means right now what's happening is our fresh air input pipes are drawing that air right over the top of that paper trash and that wood we put in there, helping burn right there, and then drawing down that fire through the center of all the restrictor area with the bigger wood we put in there. Once I'm confident that bigger wood's caught on fire and it's not just a bunch of paper burning, we're going to go ahead and start filling it up with buckets of material. So give me a moment, I'll set the camera up and you can see that from a distance. Alright, I'm pretty confident right now that we've got our reactor started well. I can tell by the smoke color and the output. I'm going to carefully open up the top of our reactor here from down low. I'm going to show you how to do this. Give that just a second just in case it wants to puff on you. I'm going to go around this other side, and I'm not going to expose my head any higher than this right now. And I'm going to take one of these buckets of material and go ahead and start feeding that tank. Because the real reaction that you're looking for inside of this system isn't taking place right there where the air jets are. The real reaction is the pyrolysis action. That's taking place due to the heat and pressure created at the burn zone above it. So now all the stuff I'm putting in now will actually create our synthetic gas we're looking for. So let me go ahead and dump one more bucket in there. Alright, I'm feeling a little more confident now that we've covered some of that. I can take a look. Alright, that looks like a pretty good load of wood. I'm going to leave some of that in there. I'll be out here for the next 10 hours if I keep filling this thing up, so I don't want to be here that long. Get rid of any of your top pieces here, and go ahead and shut down your top. It's ready to go now. We still have the spring to mount to this, but we'll do that before the project's all over. Hopefully you can see there that our smoke output is really thickening up. We can take a lighter to that quickly. I doubt that's going to light quite yet, but we can see how close it is. Neat thing is it wasn't putting out my lighter. That's pretty good for how quick that gas production. I'm actually already getting flare off. Alright, so it's not putting out my lighter. That's a pretty good sign already. We're going to let that run for just a few minutes. And once it's up to temperature, this should be producing synthetic gas for us just fine. We should be able to walk up and light the smoke out of here with no problems. So let me let it warm up and I'll turn back on the camera. Alright, this is a pretty crude way to show you the synthetic gas and how well it lights. I'm going to have to hold this all together while I'm doing this, but you can see what I've got. It's just a tin can on 2-inch piece of pipe, allowing airflow, and there you go, synthetic gas is lit. There's a difference without it being lit. There you go, that's it lit. There you go. It's not quite enough airflow. We're not cooling the gas quite enough with such a short distance. And like always here, we've got a pretty decent wind. There we go. We've got a good flame rolling out of there. You notice the gas is not going anywhere. There we go. That's great synthetic gas production. As long as the lighter's hitting it, it'll burn it. The second you take it away, you'll notice it'll come back. It means I don't have it cool enough and I don't have quite enough airflow. So we're definitely going to produce more than enough fuel for our truck here. There we go. It's staying lit now. That was for a moment. I'm going to have to be careful not to lose my eyebrows with this if the wind turns on me. You can see when it does light, it disappears for a moment. It's lit right now. Alright, well that's a pretty good showing. Without really getting it cooler, without mixing the proper airflow, it's about as good as an experiment to show you this as I'm going to get. Alright folks, Mr. Teslonian back here again. We've gotten our reactor done, which you can see back there in the background. And now what we're going to do is go ahead and start the radiator system that's going to mount to the bed rails of this truck. We're going to use what you see here in front of you, plus a couple extra things. As I find them and as I come across those parts in the project, I'll show you that. But for right now, this is the main big pieces to start out with. This is a square stock chunk from a bumper of a RV, or a trailer there, that I tore off. That's going to give us a nice big chunk of square stock. We've got two 20-foot sections of that white pipe there. That's going to, each section's going to be cut into 4 chunks, 4 5-foot long chunks. And those will weld into the square stock here, which I'll show you. We've got our black iron pipe here, which we'll use later in the project. I'll show you that later. So the first steps, what I'm going to do is mark that big square stock piece into 4 even sections, and then go ahead and cut those out. I'm also going to take my first section of 20-foot pipe there, and I'm going to mark that into 4 even sections, and I'm going to cut that out. And we're going to go ahead and weld together one side of this condenser radiator system. At the bottom of this, I'm going to weld on some flat stock on there. There'll be a tube coming out the bottom, a 1-inch piece of black iron pipe going into collection containers, like the cans we have on that project there, collecting our bio-crude. So we'll use that again. We're going to put that by our exhaust, hopefully, and be able to convert that back into the engine. So let me go ahead and get going. I'll cut some pieces up here and show you what we've got after that. Alright folks, Mr. Teslonian here. Want to take you through one of our first condenser radiator systems here. you'll notice the slope to the pipes. I told you I was going to cut that big piece of square stock into 4 equal sections. There's 2 of those sections right there. And then I took one of those 20-foot long pieces of pipe and I cut it into 4 equal pieces. And that gave me 4 5-foot long chunks. And you'll notice what I'm trying to show you here in our design is how this radiator system is going to look. They're not going to be straight pipes. They're actually going to be sloping. This will allow for a couple different things. First of all, once again, like the video for the bio-crude, let me see if I can get my hand set up here right. The smoke actually riding, let's say that's on the top up there, okay? The smoke actually traveling down that wants to go uphill. And so by pushing that downhill, we're actually forcing the smoke into the pipe constantly. The heat's hitting the pipe. That's actually going to help us condensate out a lot of the bio-crude. It will also give us a couple extra things here. You'll notice there's only 3 points here. Let me get the camera right here. 3 points where we need to put access caps so that way we can get in there and clean these pipes instead of multiple points for each pipe. Because they're so close together at those 3 points, I can drill on the other side and put a cap and a 2-inch piece of pipe there, and we can actually get in there and scrub all of that clean very easily. Second thing that'll happen here is I'm going to cut some baffles right now. Let me show you this piece of metal I have sitting right here. Alright, so I'm going to start cutting some baffles out of this right here. And what we're going to do is on this side, we're going to only need to install 1 baffle. And that's going to go right here. Right between the 2 sections of pipe. I'm going to set that there so you can see. But that's going to go up inside this square section here. I'm going to cut it to fit in there. Now it doesn't need to fit perfect. In fact, you're not going to want it to. And here's why. These are not just radiators, they're condensers. And so they're condensing out the liquids that you might gather within the pipes. That's why they're sloped. So the liquid can roll down the pipe and not sit inside of a flat pipe. So this piece right here, let's say this direction is top. That would be bottom. You want this piece in here slightly sloped downhill as your divider towards the back side. And then you're going to leave, either drill a couple 1/2-inch holes right here, or you're going to leave a bit of a gap right there. And then what that's going to do, not much, maybe about a 1/4 inch if you leave a full gap. That's all I would do, a 1/4 inch gap behind it right back here. Right there, you leave a 1/4 inch gap when this goes all the way across, and it'd be slightly sloped towards that direction. And the bio-crude that comes out of these 2 pipes will naturally hit that slope, go against your gap there, and come down through and hit the bottom where we're going to collect it out of both sides of these at the bottom, keeping the system a lot cleaner. Also, when you go to scrub them, it'll allow for a lot of that scrub down material place to come down through. So we're going to go ahead and cut a set of those baffles. Like I said, you only need 1 here. And that'll go right between these, and it'll be at a slope with a little bit of a gap towards the back side. You don't want the gap at the front side. That'll put all your bio-crude right in front of your pipes there, getting more of it back into the smoke. You don't want that. So you're going to want it to run down the back side at a slight slope like that. And then over here, on the other one, this will take 2 baffles. One will go in right here below the top edge of that pipe. And that, once again, will slightly slope towards the back edge with a little bit of a gap. And the other one will go down right here, slightly sloping downhill with a little bit of a gap. So you have 2 baffles that you can actually reach, and these can go just above the pipe here. So you don't have to reach down in there very far. That'll give you a nice open area there where those 2 come together. And then you'll also have the same thing up here. And what that'll make it so the smoke has to do here is the smoke will come in, have to travel our whole series of pipes. Travel back through that one, into this one, into that one, back out, and then over to the other side, which will have the exact same system over there also. So we're going to have twin systems looking just like this. So let me go ahead and get these holes right here. I'll show you what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and mark all my holes, take the hole saw, cut those all out. I'm going to set these pipes into place before making my baffles because I want to see where they're going to sit, and then I can actually, don't weld them in, just dry set. Then I can cut my baffles, put them in there, make sure everything looks right. Then I'm going to go ahead and tack weld everything and then final weld. So give me a moment to get that done and I'll show you where we are from there. Alright, so we've got our baffles welded into our square stock. There's the one on this side. And there's the one on this side. Alright, so that one had twin baffles. That was the design hole pattern on that one. This one here had a single baffle right there in the middle. And once again, how I did that was drilled holes on either side so that I could see the edges of it, as you can tell there, and then welded it into place from there. So if you can't get your welding head down in there, use that method. So anyways, there's the pattern on the holes on that side. There's just the 4 holes there. So we have got all our baffles into place. We're going to grind now, clean up all our edges, and we're going to weld this radiator together. So let me get that done, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Alright folks, we've got our first radiator built here. It's got a couple little things left to do to it, but we're not going to do those right yet until we get all the radiator system put together, and then we'll put those on and interconnect them all together here. So anyways, as you can tell, I've put my caps up on top of all these, welded my caps on there, so it's a fully sealed system. In fact, I got 2 holes I got to still put in this, both of which are going to be on this side, either right here or out of the top for our gas inlet, and then our gas output will be all the way down at the bottom next to where that lower pipe comes in. I haven't done that yet because I don't have all the radiator system built, and I want to see exactly where it's all going to sit before I drill holes. It's usually a pretty good idea to keep it so that it all turns out pretty square. So anyways, there you go. There's our first bed rail radiator system done. I'm going to go ahead and get to work on the other 2. Alright folks, I've got my second radiator done now. Those are bedside radiators. They're both ready to go. I'm going to finalize the mounting on the second one here. Now we're going to go ahead and start building our third radiator system. And that's going to sit right above the cab right here. It's going to come up. I'm trying to figure out exactly how high right now. I'm going to show you when I get that idea kind of more stabilized here. I want to kind of do some wind resistance things. It might be sloped slightly. I'll show you when I get there and what that looks like. But you can see right now, that's going to give us 40 feet, not including the square stock, but 40 feet of the pipe here to run that gas through. And once again, because of our baffles inside of there, which you can probably see has a couple drip holes on the side there, you can see our baffles inside of there. Once again, that smoke's going to have to travel through each one of those pipes all the way through to the bottom. And that's going to make sure that it's equal pressure all the way through. If you've got one side just a square block, another side a square block, and they're just straight tubes without baffles, smoke's going to find obviously the point of least resistance and probably not travel equally through all the pipes, and you're really not getting effective usage out of your pipes. So this way we're really going to be getting an effective usage out of these. Another thing we're going to do here just a little later on is we're going to come in right behind any one of these double sections. We're going to put probably a 2-inch piece there with a cap here and there, up high and down low on both of those, and once again right here. And that's going to allow us a cleaning ability into those pipes. And we're going to have 3 caps, and we can basically scrub all the pipes from those 3 caps. Might go 3-inch, we'll see what we find. Anyways, want to go ahead and show you that. This is both bedside rail cooling system radiators are done now. I'm going to link the 2 of them together through that upper radiator. That's actually going to be the linking system. It's actually going to come out of the gasifier into our water bath, up into the radiator above the cab, which is going to be up and down tubes. Condenser radiator. It's going to go across into this one, go all the way back and forth, come across out of the bottom, crisscross back up to the top. Do this all over again, come out of there, into our hay filter and off into the truck. So there you go. I thought I'd share that with you. Let me get going on the third radiator and I'll show you what we've decided from there. Alright, real quick, I want to show you the materials you're going to need for the next part of this project, which is the Cyclone. The Cyclone's going to spin from one side, take the hot air directly out of the reactor, put it in the one side, spin it around. It's going to have to go down to about right here, and then go back up a tube and out the top. That's going to be basically how we trap some of that fly ash that's coming out and some of the heavier tars. There'll also be a drain spout, this bigger pipe right there, coming out the bottom and into a catch tank, which I'll show you when we get there. So anyways, here's what you're going to need. Just 2 2-inch pieces of pipe for right now. You could use any size you determine. On your vehicle you might go bigger if you got a V8. But you're going to need one little chunk here with the threaded end that's going to screw into the barrel of our reactor there. And that's going to, the other side's going to go into the propane tank. So let me go ahead and cut 2 holes here in the propane tank. One's going to be at a side angle here pointing in and one out the top. And I'll also in the end up cutting my 3rd hole with the hole saw in the bottom here. And I'll end up putting all the pipes in real quick. Let me go ahead and get some of those holes cut and I'll show you what it looks like. Alright, we've got 2 of the beginning holes to make the Cyclone here cut out of it. Let me show you real briefly here how that's going to look. Roughly here anyways. We can stick that piece of pipe down in there. Well, bottom's there, so we're going to come up off the bottom a bit. I have it flattened out for a reason, which I'll show you here. The other piece of pipe here is going to go in like that and come out Let's get it in there right about like that, into the side. Maybe pull that just a little bit more, kind of at an angle more into the side there. So there you go, basically the Cyclone. The other part here is going to go into the bottom, and that's going to be our drain out. That's where the ash and the heavy tars are going to actually drain down to a catch tank down there. Let me get that done and I'll show you what that looks like. Alright folks, we've got the completion of our Cyclone done now. I just wanted to show you dry set sitting off the reactor side. You'll notice the downspouts now welded into place. That's that red pipe out of the bottom of the Cyclone. That's where the ash and the heavy crude is going to settle to, into our collection tank down below. And out of the top, you notice that our outspout for the gas out is well in there and welded together. We're going to go ahead now and put a box off the top of this and go into another collection tank, into a couple other radiators, and I'll show you those as I get them done. Alright folks, we're now done with the next part of this project, and I wanted to show you what I've done here. What I've added onto that is an aluminum hot water heater tank from an RV. You'll see the water outputs up on the top up there. What's going to happen here is the Cyclone is going to put all of its hot smoke straight up through a center pipe inside of this, almost all the way up to the top. It's going to come out of that pipe and expand to the outer chamber, right back down that outer chamber here, and then out through this section right here. We got a little wind here. I'm going to try to block it or turn here. So anyways, it'll come out of here. I'm going to open this space up so it's a lot bigger. It's going to go right into a 6-inch piece of pipe, dropping straight downhill because of the amount of liquid that we're going to precipitate out of that smoke due to this water reservoir up here. So anyways, we're going to go ahead and finish that section right now. I'm going to manufacture what I need to hook on there, and I'll show you that once we're done with that. Alright, real quick, I want to go over what we're going to use for the moisture catch can. This is 2 5-gallon oil cans, as you can tell. I've cut the top and the bottom out of one of them, so that way it's hollow all the way through. This will give me a large open area, and what I'm going to do now is open that back up, and in there I'm going to create some half-moon baffles that are going to allow for the smoke to come in the top at one side, have to drop down a baffle, back up, down, up, and down, and up, and so on, with a moisture release area out of the bottom here, so we can actually get rid of any of the liquids that we do accumulate in here. That's exactly what this will do. And so anyways, it'll have to come out the top on the other side after going through all our baffles, back out of the top. Now another thing that's going to happen is that red pipe there out of the bottom of the Cyclone is also going to come down into the top of this barrel, but it's going to come down only a couple inches from the bottom there into the liquid level that's in there. That'll actually take all the fly ash and any of the heavy crude dropped by the Cyclone immediately down into our crude catch. And then out of the top of the Cyclone, it's going to go into our hot water heater tank. That'll be water cooling on it. A heavy flow is going to come out of that because not only is it water cooling, but aluminum acts as a catalyst like copper does for synthetic gas. So anyways, the catalyst will help precipitate out a lot of that extra wood wine that's in there. It'll put it back into the tank. So the output from that will drop back into this tank again, and then we'll have the output finally at another stage out of the end going into our radiator system. So this will basically try to catch multiple times all the liquid being produced in the main stages, and in the end hopefully our radiators on our bed rails will also feed into this tank. So we'll have one large crude catch tank here and wood alcohol catch tank. So let me get that going. I'll crack this thing open here and show you what we're doing for baffles inside. Alright, real quick here, just want to go ahead and show you these baffles before I insert the last two into the other side over here. Pretty rough on the welding there, but this is what the baffle system looks like. You notice I've got a cutout on this one. This is actually the bottom side. This is where this is going to lay flat like this. And that's going to allow for any liquids that build up to roll between each one of the baffles, so I can have one outspout and they can all go out. Instead of having to fill up in each compartment and go over, we can get it to go right through and out easily. So smoke's going to come in the top, hit against that upper baffle, have to drop down, come against this baffle, come up, down, and back up again. So that's going to be the full cycle inside of this can. This is a big condensing can. This will catch a lot of our fluids, and with the baffling, it'll help cool the smoke pretty dramatically. So let me go ahead and insert these two baffles, which is going to look like this. This one's going to go all the way down, just above the bottom here. Probably give myself 3 inches between the wall and the plate, and I'm going to weld that into place there. And this one here is going to go on the bottom, and that one's going to once again allow my liquid flow through the bottom. And I'm just going to tack weld those into place. There our condenser jug is ready to go with its baffles. I'm just going to go ahead and cut a couple hole saw holes, and I'll show you from there. Alright folks, I've got most of this system built. I did a little bit of finalizing. Most of this is just tack welded now. I just wanted to see what it looked like all put together, so I'm going to go ahead and finish the welds, but first I want to describe to you exactly what we have going on here. Let me hop up in the bed of this truck. Alright, so what you see here is our smoke path is going to do this. Our smoke's coming out of the reactor into our first cyclone here. It's going to drop down, it's going to go into our internal pipe, come up out of this pipe, right here, into the center of our hot water heater tank. I'm going to try to block some of that wind, folks. Into our hot water heater tank, all the way up to the top, just about to here. It's going to come out into a larger expansion chamber, this one here. What's going to happen inside of this catalyst, and also it's getting very, very cold in here, is a lot of liquid's going to be pouring down out of that. This narrow reservoir here, this narrow area, it's wide, but narrow, is going to allow the smoke and the liquid being created to come in very close contact with each other, which is really going to help cool our smoke down even more. It's slightly sloped downhill, so all the smoke's going to come through this narrow area, drop straight down the 6-inch pipe, all the way back down to about there on our lower crude catch tank. And then it's going to go up into the center pipe, which is also a catalyst pipe, another kind of metal that's a catalyst with synthetic gas, and this is it right here. So it's going to have to go all the way down, back up, into this, into our first radiator. So there's all the gas entering into our first radiator right there. So out of our first cyclone here, the heavy crude and the ash is now going to drop out of this lower pipe right here, and down into our crude catch, and that pipe goes almost all the way down to the bottom here. You see I already put in a outspout. I need to put a plug in there so we can now run all that heavy crude, if we want, back into the ash supply, into our heavy ash supply inside of our reactor tank here, which will actually help bind a lot of that up, and in fact the heat in there will reactivate a lot of that, produce smoke from it we can actually use. So this is our holding tank for all that crude, our first primary big one here, and that system's actually going to have to run through it a few different times like you can see there. And anyways, I'm going to finish the radiator top right up here. It's going to be a pancake flat radiator, and that's going to help cycle our cool water through here. And we're going to put a fan up on top of that for traffic driving inside of towns where we're low speed driving. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and start finish welding, pull that all out of here now so I can get to all the sides and finish my welds up. Alright, so we've basically covered what I've got going on here. What this will be doing for us now is collecting a lot of our crude system, and it's basically given us 2 cyclones in a way, and a water cooling system that's going to help precipitate out a lot of that liquid. And we also have 2 catalyst metals in there, which zinc, aluminum, and copper are all catalyst metals. So anything with zinc, copper, and aluminum are going to definitely do a good job dropping out of a lot of the liquids out of your smoke that you don't want going into your engine, and before you even want them going into your radiator system. So there you go. Give me a chance to finalize all my welds. We'll run the pipe across from the first radiator, from down at the bottom of it, over to the top of the other radiator here. And then I've got some other tanks that we're going to start hooking up, and I'll show you what we're doing from there with that little gas tank there and some piping. Alright folks, in the beginning of this episode about how to convert your truck to a gasifier, I showed you those 3 long rods of 1-inch black iron pipe we had. That's going to be our third and final radiator, as you can see right there. I'm almost done with it. I just wanted to put it up into place, dry set like that. I got some cuts to make on the upper bar up there. Really quickly though, I'm going to show you what I have got left to finalize it and the direction and the path the smoke is going to take. So let me carefully walk up here because it's just kind of resting there. Alright, as you can tell here, what I've done is hold sawed a 2-inch hole in the bottom of that, right where our gas is going to come out the bottom of our radiator on the side there. Gas is going to come in the top, work its way down, out the bottom. It's going to come out into this piece of square stock. I'm going to pull that up and weld it into place. Right here in the square stock is a baffle. Inside of there like we did in those, but this one's just straight up and down. That does have a slight little gap at the bottom just so anything that condensates in here can get all the way through the system. Very little gap. You don't want your smoke going through. Alright folks, I've got the third and final radiator now completed, and before I put it into place I wanted to just go through with you exactly how it works, and where the baffles go, and the direction the smoke flows. So real quickly here, let me take you down into this. We're going to have some shadows in the way because the time of day it is. First of all, if I set you down inside of there, you'll see the iron baffle welded into place inside of there. That's just beyond the 2-inch pipe here. Smoke's going to enter in from our bed rail radiator here, travel up that pipe and over and across here. It'll actually be forced now down through all those 1-inch pipes. There's 9 of those cut inside of there. And if I come over here, you'll notice what I've done here is basically cap that end off right there. So this upper pipe stops right here. All the gas has to come through that upper pipe and go down to the bottom square pipe now, back over to this 2-inch piece, back up that 2-inch and over into our other bed rail. So we're basically forcing the smoke to come uphill, across, and then forcing it downhill across all these radiator bars, into our square stock below, up the final 2-inch out into the other side of our bed rail radiator system. So I'm going to go ahead and make some of my cuts there and get my angles right and weld that into place. I just wanted to show you this before I finalize it and set it up into place. Let me go ahead and get the rest of it done and I'll show you it once it's set. Alright, we finalized that third and final radiator now and put it into place. Wanted to show you just what it looks like with all the bed rail radiators now mounted. Everything's up and ready to go. We have nothing left to do now but to put our finalized reactor and our double cyclone water cooling system that I've already showed you now back in here, put it right into the top of this one. From there, the smoke path is already ready to go all the way through that first radiator, into the bottom there, up that first pipe, and across, and then back down all those 1-inch pipes into the square stock, up the last 2-inch piece of pipe there, comes out of the bottom of the square stock, up that pipe over and into the top of our other radiator. Now it's going all the way down, and that's where we're going to go now. We're going to go ahead and start working on what comes off the side of the truck into a double canister drying filter that'll hold some kind of drying medium, possibly rocks to grass to hay to other pieces of wood. We'll probably have 2 different kinds of mediums in there, and I'll show you that as I get it done. Just really quickly here, wanted to show you what it looks like with everything in place. Now that we've got the reactor and the double cyclone water cooling system completely finished, we can put that back up in there now, hook that up to that upper corner up there on the bed rail, and it's ready to go. The entire system's hooked up and plumbed together. It's nicely sealed. Now all we have to do is run the smoke into, like I said, those 2 canisters of a drying filter medium and into our engine. Not too much longer here and we'll be done. So give me a little bit of time and I'll finish that up and show you where we're going from here. Alright folks, I've got that filter system done. It's a drying filter. You can see it mounted up there on the bed rail. You can see now that the gas pipe's coming out of the top of it, running all the way down. It became a kickboard across the bottom, up over my tire and out to the front, which I'll now cut that other piece you see coming down at the angle there, and I'll bring that just underneath my turn signal. So it's not blocking my headlight or my turn signal, and that'll go into our front and final filter system. Real quickly here, let me show you what we've got going on. Like I showed you before, this pipe is coming out and into the center of this with the whole bottom of it milled out, so the gas has to rise up. We're going to go ahead and fill that full of a drying medium, probably wood chunks in this one. That gas will have to rise all the way up and out this pipe right here, drop all the way back down, run all the way across here, up over our tire, and into this. And I'm going to now cut one more final cut here. Like I said, just below the turn signal here, right where my fingers are in the pipe basically. That pipe's going to take a bend and head into our final filter system right here in front of the truck. This also makes sure we got a nice wind flow against that, guaranteeing that everything's basically dropped out of it and a good clean gas is from here going to enter right into our engine. So we're obviously not too far away from getting this done. You can see here as a front profile looking down the vehicle, it's not that doesn't stick out all that much. In fact, it makes a pretty nice off-road vehicle external bumper system here. So let me go ahead and get the rest of this done. We'll now add that front filter like I said here, and then we'll put it right into the engine. That's basically what we got left, some combiner boxes and some butterfly valves and some regulator stuff that we'll have to mount in the cab. So let me get that done and we'll go from there. Alright folks, Mr. Thessalonian back here again. We are almost done with this project. Last video shot I showed you, we were getting this whole side system put in there. Our first filtering system, that'll be either charcoal or wood chunks that we put inside of that can. Smoke's gonna drop down once again. Maybe in the last video you couldn't tell, but these are actually welded. They've got kicker runners coming underneath there. I've got them hidden all over the place. I'm making sure that's really tough. In fact, just want to see, I can actually get up on top of this with both feet, and I'm not doing any flexing to that kicker board there. So anyways, that's a nice strong pipe welds all the way through. You can see I actually ended that corner just behind the headlight. That way there would be no glare or any interaction with the headlight and the pipe. It drops back down up underneath the bumper here. Let me go underneath and show you what's going on there. You can see that basically I've got a hole saw hole. I angled that piece of pipe, and that's now running into the bottom of this 5-gallon oil can. I've got a hole here I still got to put a little tap out of so we can drain anything that does catch in there. So you can see the pipe comes all the way through, goes into the can like I said, and it also keeps going. It bypasses that into our fan here. And this is, at least for now, the fan I have for the front fan. This will be the end draw fan for the whole system. It'll actually pull the smoke out. We'll close that off, and the smoke will draw through that pipe, through our filter here. Let me go ahead and show you how I put together the filter. Pull that open. Now the only thing that's probably going to change here is I'm going to actually end up cutting this at a 45, and I'm going to slope this end piece aiming upwards a little further into the cap. Actually, so the smoke has to rise past it, draw through the center and back down. That'll do a better job through the hay. Down inside of there, you'll see our bottom pipe coming in and a nice screen, round screen all the way around, standing off the bottom. That'll allow our smoke to enter pretty evenly underneath our hay. And that's what we're going to fill this with. We're going to fill this full of hay, and this will be our final filtering system, drying filter, before it goes into the engine. So let me put the lid back on that. So there you go. That's what the front look is, and this is where I'm at. I haven't finished welding everything up, but right now I had to reduce the pipe to get through this front clip here of the truck. I removed my grill. My grill is in perfect condition. I'm only the second owner of this truck, so I'm trying to keep it in decent shape here. So I did remove the grill instead of cutting a hole in it. And there was already a natural hole right here in the front clip. So I went through there with the slightly reduced pipe. We are now inside the engine block. So everything's done. Basically, I'm going to finish weld this once I get the air combiner box all situated and mounted to the intake filter for the normal car, for the engine there. And I'm going to build that all together. Then I'll come through and solid weld it all once I got it into place, just in case I need to bend or tweak it just slightly. Once I got it on there, though, I'll show you what we've done for that. Anyway, so there's our final external filtering, radiator, cooling, and fan system. I know it looks a little strange, but the fact is it's going to work really, really well, folks. This is a great system for us that will have long-term use. The front can and everything here that you saw before, all the rough paint work, is all now going to get taken apart and put into sandblasting. We're going to have this all painted with the truck. Alright folks, now that I've showed you how the front filter system works and that we're all the way into the engine block, all we have left here is to build a combiner, the fresh air and smoke combiner basically underneath the hood, which I'll get to tomorrow. As you can see here, we are done. We've finished our reactor, our double cyclone water filter, all of our radiator system, and our filters are all hooked together. So basically I've got some electrical to do for the double fan system. I'll have this hooked up to, and we have a little bit of butterfly valves and stuff to do underneath the hood here, and we're ready to go. So not just but a few days from now, we'll be running around town here on wood gas, and also filling our gas tank full of hopefully methanol and some diesel gasoline derivative from the bio-crude. Depends on how well I can get this reactor in here to break back down the bio-crude into what we're looking for here. So give me a little bit of time here to finish what we need underneath the hood. I'll throw the reactor back inside, I'll fill the hay filters and the charcoal filter back full, and we'll start this thing up. Hi folks, here we are working on our combiner box to our carburetor intake system here. I want to go through with you some of what I've got done here before I seal this all up. Let me go ahead and show you what it looks like down inside of here. As you can tell, we have 3 pipes coming in there and a 4th one out of the bottom. This is actually going to be our fresh air mixture. We do have another fresh air mix here, but this is also, you shut this one all the way down if you want to run on syngas, and if you want to run on normal gasoline, you can just open this back up. It'll draw air just like it did before. So that's our truck shutdown open up for standard usage. And now what we're going to do here is I'm going to seal up the top here. That's why I wanted to show you it before I did this. And then we're going to hook up off the bottom here. We're going to hook our 1-inch flexible hosing, and it's going to go through that hole. Possibly you can see this here. I'll zoom in for you. You see that hole in the firewall in the background back there? There was a plug in that, so I went ahead and pulled the plug out of there. And it's the perfect size for a piece of 3/4 pipe to just go through right there. So we're going to go ahead and drop flexible hose over to that. We'll have a metal coupler going through the firewall, and then up the other side to 2 valves. On the inside, we're going to have this valve. This will be our main regulation and starting valve. This will be perfect for that. And then we're going to have a secondary valve for fine-tune regulation, because this is really necessary once you get your system going, that you're going to want to fine-tune it. And here's what we've got for that. I've got this propane valve right here. This propane valve allows for a very fine adjustment. So this is going to go in line right before this valve and allow for me, once this one's set, to get the thing up and running, because you got to open it all the way up to get it started. You want to close it almost down. And then while I'm driving on a really fine adjustable airflow change so that I can make it so it's running perfectly. So that's going to be our fine adjustment. It was the best thing I could find. So I'll show you what I've got done there once I get there. Just real quickly here, as you can see, it's just smoke coming up. We've got 1 fresh air mix, but this is for, like I said, to make sure the car can still run on normal gasoline. And we've got our bottom intake for fresh air here to mix the smoke. So we'll shut that down. That'll make sure that smoke has to come up, go in that way, draw fresh air in from here, which will all be regulated underneath the steering column inside the dash. So give me a few moments, I'll seal that up, and I'll show you where I'm going from here. Alright folks, we are done with all the stuff we need to do now to get this engine up and running. Tomorrow we'll have a running gasifier truck. Let me take you through what I've done here to get our airflow inside the cab. First of all, this main valve you see, I'm going to try to keep the camera up. We've got some sun glare. This main valve is our main airflow. When we go to start it, we're going to want a lot of airflow, but right after it starts, we're going to shut that down a bit. And then when we drive down the road, we're going to want to be able to micro adjust this. And these T-handles are not micro adjustable very easy. You'll shut your engine off. So what I've done here is I've put a propane valve in line below that valve here. This will give me micro adjustability when I'm going down the road. I can actually take that and make sure our airflow is perfect with that valve. Draws the air in that side. You can see the T's going down, goes underneath here to this piece of flexible hosing, 1-inch hosing through the firewall. The only other thing I've done to be able to run this both on gasoline and on syngas is that this switch right here goes now to my fuel pump. So now I can shut off my electric fuel pump, make sure there's no gasoline coming into the engine. The other part of it here, let me go ahead and walk you through what we've done. Like I showed you before in the other film, this is our other main airflow valve. So we can open this up, run on gasoline, and now airflow will go right in like it's supposed to. We can also shut this down. And now we've got it so that it's running on our syngas combiner here, drawing in the fresh air from the bottom, coming in from the cab. There, our regulation system inside there. You can see what I've done. It's a bunch of pipe welds and metal by the exhaust. Just a flexible attachment so I can undo all this. We've now got it mounted to the air cleaner intake. It's coming through the firewall. This is all sealed up. Everything's ready to go, folks. We are sealed and ready. One thing I may not have explained in the other video is why I put this on here. What this will allow me to do is not when I'm running the truck, but I can start up the syngas producer, the reactor in the back. I can undo this cap, and I can hook this pipe from here now. It's gone through all my filters and the coolers. I can put that to a generator. I can put that to a chainsaw. I can do whatever can run on syngas off of that and not be using it only as just for the truck. So that's a real simple way to do that. Just out of the top, put a 1-inch threaded piece with a cap, and that allows us to go ahead and run a generator off it if we want to. So here we are, we're all done, everything's ready to go. We're going to go ahead tomorrow and put the reactor back in the back. We're going to fire it up, and let's go ahead and take a trip down the road. Alright, well I hope you enjoyed the production and building of this project. now that we're done, tomorrow's going to be the big day. We're going to go ahead and fire it up, like I said, and we'll be rolling down the road on wood. So wait until I get that project done, and until next time, this was Mr. Teslonian and the Teslonian Man Show. Hi folks, Mr. Teslonian back here again. Well, as you can tell, I've got everything put back into the truck. We are ready to go. I've got buckets of wood ready here. I'm going to fire it all up on film and just kind of show you how we're doing this. You see here I've got 2 buckets full of chopped up wood, and then I've got a box up here with some biochar in there and some starter material. So we're going to go ahead and I'll show you that. Let me walk you around and show you what I've done here. This tank here right now is about halfway full of biochar. I put biochar and then a light fluffed up mesh of cedar bark in there on the very top. It's running through there. I'll walk you up to the front filter, show you what we've done in there. Oh, that lid's on there pretty good. Give me a second. That's what you want though. If it doesn't make a good seal, it's not worth having. Alright. So as you can tell, what I've done here is I've put another filter on top, so I'm not sucking in pieces of this cedar bark or hay or whatever we're going to use here. I've fluffed up that cedar bark, like I said, like this. I think this is actually going to work pretty good as a filter medium. I've got a little bit of biochar at the very bottom of this, some big chunks of wood like this, and then a bunch of cedar bark on top. This allows me to be able to still suck in the air without having to worry about those pieces getting in there. So let me go ahead and put that lid back on. You can see I've got a little cutout here where it lines up. I'm going to set that on there nice and tight. Alright. So there we go. We are ready to go here. I'm going to start up the fire. Hear me show you the front appearance here. It's a little high, but to tell you the truth, that's not bad. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what we're going to start it up with. Give me just a second here. Get the shot set up in the back of the truck. We'll go from there. Alright folks, so here we are. Well, this is our first layers here. You're going to notice over on this side what I've got there is a bunch of biochar chunks kind of mixed in there. Maybe you can see that black inside of there. I've mixed some charcoal already inside of this, and that's going to be the very first handfuls I'm going to drop inside of our reactor here today to start it up. So we're going to go ahead and start dropping fuel down in there. Start out with a mix of some biochar and wood. Drop some bigger chunks of wood in there. See if I can hold that camera still and still grab stuff here. Alright, here in a second I'm going to take a quick look, see how much we've put in there, see if that's what I'm looking for. Alright, so give me a second here, let's climb up on top, take a quick look down in there. Maybe you can see through the dust, probably not. If I get it in far enough, maybe so. So let me take a look. I can't see through the dust. Alright folks, so here we are. Well, this is our first layers here. You're going to notice over on this side what I've got there is a bunch of biochar chunks kind of mixed in there. Maybe you can see that black inside of there. I've mixed some charcoal already inside of this, and that's going to be the very first handfuls I'm going to drop inside of our reactor here today to start it up. So we're going to go ahead and start dropping fuel down in there. Start out with a mix of some biochar and wood. Drop some bigger chunks of wood in there. See if I can hold that camera still and still grab stuff here. Alright, here in a second I'm going to take a quick look, see how much we've put in there, see if that's what I'm looking for. Alright, real quick here, my camera's down in there so I don't want to leave it long, it's going to get dusty. You can see the level of fuel we've got in there. We're going to add about 3 or 4 good handfuls more, and then we're going to put our paper starter on top of that. So here we go. Alright, so once again, like I said, just a few more handfuls of this. starter on top of there. The more charcoal you mix in, the quicker the gas production is going to start. The cleaner the first gas is going to be. So there, we've done that. Now we're going to go ahead and throw in our... Alright folks, I thought this would be a good spot to let you see exactly what I'm doing here. I think you can see some of those nozzles over there. You can watch me pull the plug here. Once I get it started, I'll come out and hold the camera and we'll walk around. You can see the smoke coming out of our fan down there. Alright, so let's see if we can get this running. Here we go. I'm going to have to go pretty quick on this. So we're going to unplug the fan, pull it out of the way. We're going to stick our plug cap in there, make sure it's good and tight. And we're going to try to start this thing up. So, either we're not getting enough air, or we're not getting any... Oh, let me shut this all down to draw the smoke to the engine here. That'd help. Obviously there's no gasoline in it. Okay, we should have some to the engine now. We're going to open this up and see if we can't get this to run. Almost had something. Oh, I didn't have the air open. Trying to run a bit here. Well, we're getting some kind of startup flow. Oh, there it is. It's running. There it is. Oh. It's running again. It's rough. Feels like I'm starving for air. It's still running. Hey, hey, hey! Oh, okay, so there it is, folks. We had it started up here. Alright, I know this is a long film, but I'm going to try to show you really what it takes here, and this is our original try. Let's try this again. Hopefully our battery's starting. Okay, let's shut that back down again, see if we can't get draw. Okay. Alright, give me a second here, folks. Let's regulate a little extra airflow into right here. And that might make all the difference in the world on getting this to run right. Let's try it again. Alright folks, let me take this thing off of here. It took me some fine tuning. Get this all running right now. But there we are. I've pulled the plug out, or the fan out, put the plug in. It seems to be running alright. Took me quite a while to get my airflow right. Let's take it for a drive. Well, it might help to put the hood down. Hold on a second. Alright, let's take it for a drive here and let me show you what we're doing. Alright, we've got our airflows all set up here. Let's see if it moves. That sounds good. You can see our draw is wide open on this one. I'm regulating it with this one here. Let's see how she goes down the road. Oh wow. Alright folks, here we go again. Alright, I'm gonna try to, let me switch hands here. There's second gear. We got a little bit of a lag there. Maybe I can regulate that with this. Oh, listen, the idle very high. Idle's extremely high. You can hear it, that's much higher than normal. Alright, I'm gonna back up here. Boy, you can hear it. You can see I'm smoking a little bit. Alright. You can see my opening there. Alright, I gotta look in the back. Alright, well, let me show you what my exhaust is looking like. I can see it in the rear view that I've got some smoky looking exhaust. Well, it could be dust. You'll see this trail behind me. Let me go ahead and flip around. I'm gonna help out real quick and take a look at what's coming out the tailpipe. Maybe I need to get my mixture a little bit leaner or a little bit thicker. Alright, notice no smoke coming out of the thing. Looks like it's doing pretty good. Let's look. Actually, I see a little bit, but it's nothing like what I expected. It's actually burning pretty clean. So there you go, there's a great test. Alright. Well, you can tell there's a bit of a leak here in my bio crude container. Yeah, I can see it right there. We've got leaky crude oil down here in the bottom. You can see it pooling up right down underneath right there. So I'm gonna have to look for that. But we're obviously producing a good amount of bio crude. Oh, that thing's hot as can be. So let's go ahead and open this other one up. I've got a cap, we've been running on 2, and I've been wondering if that's not the problem here for getting it going a little bit stronger, so we're gonna open up all 4. We're gonna now try to run this on all 4 of those wide open. Alright, so here we go. Hey, that made all the difference in the world, folks. Alright, I was starving for fuel. It looks like I got plenty of airflow. I'm just... Oh, the idle's way higher, though. Well, that's something I'm gonna have to adjust there, folks. It's making my idle rev extremely high. I don't know if you can hear that in the background, but that's not normal for the truck. So let me go ahead once again here. We're gonna turn around. We're just testing this thing back and forth between the plates and the gate. The exhaust smells different. It's a little different than I'm used to. Man, we're doing pretty good here, folks. There we go. We're once again cruising on this. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go up, do another lap here if you'll stay with me. And then, let's see. Okay. Alright, it's working great. Those 4 open when you need the power, when you need the extra fuel, seems to be the way to go. That does match though, since the rest of it is 2-inch pipe and those 4 pipes equal 2 inches. So it's a matching airflow amount. Alright, let's go down one more time here. We're going to shut it off and I'm going to show you live from this that we're actually still running on syngas. That's what's actually doing this. I'm kind of worried about shutting it down, but we're going to see if we get any back blasts here. It'll be a good test on the puff backs through the reactor. You can tell this is working great. I haven't had to make any real adjustments once I kind of got it going. I had to bend that just a little bit. Yeah, so it's, you know, that's all that I've had to do. So here we go. Alright, so let's put it in neutral here. Alright, let's walk around real quick. Alright, folks, that's awesome. That's a truck right now running on the power of wood. And it's running great. Our filters are obviously working pretty well. We're going to do a test here in a moment and see just how well they're working. Folks, what I'm going to do now is go ahead and let's go in and shut down this truck for you. There you go. Now let's watch this reactor. There should be some kind of smoke starting to come out of our reactor now that there's nothing going on. Oh, there you go. It's coming out of the pipes. So there we go, folks. I don't know how long it's good to keep that running without pulling through it. I can hear liquids bubbling in there. Let's see if it'll start. All right, here we go. Oh, that's nice. Well, you're gonna catch that because I'm not gonna edit it. There we go. Hey, like I said, the idle's extremely high. Here we go, let's go back out. All right, you can see this cloud of smoke still actually kind of puffing away there. There we are, folks. No smoke coming out of the pipes. We're out of the top of the reactor now. I don't have the aluminum full of water, and it's not hot, but it's getting warmer. It's lukewarm right now, so having that water would sure help. I don't see anything coming out anywhere. I haven't seen any leaks. And here's the greatest thing, is let me lift up my hood. And there we go, folks. That's running on synthetic gas. It's a higher idle than it normally runs on, so obviously the hydrogen content is got a higher RPM than the gasoline. So once again, we're running through everything. Oh, that's cool to the touch. Hey, these are actually nice and cool to the touch. So there's no heat even getting this far. Yep. So we're doing good. We've been running for a little bit here. Let's see how long we can keep this going. No, I don't want to break that seal yet. Everything seems to be working pretty well. Let's not mess with it. I had to open this valve up quite a bit and stick a blade in there, kind of a swirling blade. It's actually half closed. I'll show you what I did here in the other film. But it needed a lot more airflow than I thought it was going to need. But there it is, folks. Once again, let's go ahead and just reach in. And then we can see here. Let's give it a second and see whether immediately, look at that, boom, that smoke's coming back out. Now that's highly flammable gases, really, and it's probably not safe to be doing this without using up all the fuel. So I'm going to go ahead and you can see a bunch rolling out over the lip there at the top. Coming out of there everywhere again. Let's go ahead and start it up from right here. Let's see how it does. Alright. That's great. That means all the work was worth it, folks. That means that from now on I get to drive to town anywhere I want to go. I'm still going to do a highway test obviously on this, but I'm going to give it a longevity test out here on the ranch for the next couple days and just make sure there's nothing about it that I don't like. Make sure it's running nice and strong. But there it is, folks. There's our system working. That was so worth it in the end. Once again for you, let me reach in, turn this thing off, and we'll see if the smoke comes back out of the top right here. Let's see how long that takes. Can we see the other pipe over there? And already there it is. So there's our smoke coming back out. Our reactor's definitely burning really well. I was starving for fuel though with only one of these open, and then I went to two, and then in the end I ended up opening all four of those pipes wide open. I wanted to just see, starting at one, see what we could do. So there you go. Let's start it back up if it's going to do it for us. Oh, that's great. And there goes the smoke right back through our system. So there you go, folks. There's how, from top to bottom, how to make a gasifier truck. From our radiator system, which even this pipe is surprisingly cool. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed. Until next time, where we'll do a highway test with our gasifier truck. This was Mr. Thessalonian and the Thessalonian Man Show.